Welcome, friends, enemies, and everyone in between, to my channel, The Masked Mormon. I am, in fact, The Masked Mormon.
Why are you wearing a mask? Were you burned by acid or something like that?
Oh no, it's just they're terribly comfortable. I think everyone will be wearing them in the future.
If you are returning, welcome back. But if this is your first time here, I am a Mormon who used to believe in the truth claims of the Mormon Church. I did it all. I was baptized, I went on a mission, I attended BYU, I was married in the temple, and all the rest of it. I truly believed in the claims of Mormonism, and I was in it to win it. Now, I explore some of the implications of Mormon theology, culture, and some of my own personal experiences, and talk about it on the internet with you fine viewers. If you haven't yet, and if you like what I do, please press the like button and subscribe. Even leave a comment if you would like. I read them all, and I try to respond to all that I can. Now, I am amazed because this channel has reached a milestone. It's just reached 500 subscribers. Thank you all so much for joining me on this journey. Now, I know compared to other channels, that might be pretty small potatoes, but I am thankful. I realize that I am a very small fish in a very large pond. So, thank you. And if there are any specific topics that you would like me to cover, please let me know down in the comments. Now, on to today's topic. The other day, I came across a poem called The Narcissist's Prayer by Dayna Craig. It's composed of just 6 short statements. Here it is. Quote, "That didn't happen. And if it did, it wasn't bad. And if it was, it's not such a big deal. And if it is, that's not my fault. And if it was, I didn't mean it. And if I did, you deserved it." Unquote. And I started thinking about the church and whether it fits into this description. But first, I had to familiarize myself with what narcissism actually is. This really seems to be a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot, especially in online discourse. It's easy to come across someone describing a partner, a friend, or other loved one as a narcissist. But are they? Are they just being selfish or full of themselves? What actually is narcissism? I think we may all have at least a vague understanding of it, but I wanted to delve into it further before I gave a knee-jerk reaction when applying that vagueness to the church. The corporate church has a lot of problems, enough that we really don't need to make things up in order to criticize it. We really don't need to mischaracterize anything in order to show that the church isn't what it claims to be. So I wanted to make sure that the definitions are actually apt and actually fit. So, let's see what Psychology Today has to say about narcissism. Then, examine if the church fits into that description. Like most things, narcissism is on a spectrum. There is a normal distribution of it throughout the population. Most people are near the middle, or average in regards to narcissism. I guess what that means is most of us are average narcissists? I don't know. But it's pretty rare to have someone who scores in the extremes of the Narcissistic Personality Inventory, or NPI, that's used to measure narcissism. Healthy individuals who score slightly higher than average may be perceived as especially charming, but then eventually come across as vain. However, they still have a healthy personality. Narcissism isn't necessarily someone who spends too much time talking about themselves, or who has a low degree of self-doubt. Neither is it someone who seems to have a surplus of self-esteem, or someone who is insecure. Instead, it seems to encompass a hunger for appreciation or admiration. They may want to always be the center of attention, and expecting special treatment and feel like they are of higher status than everyone else. A narcissist may even admit that they are especially self-centered. The self-centeredness can damage relationships of all kinds, from romantic to professional. And besides having a grandiose sense of self-importance, a narcissist will also have a lack of empathy. With the need for excessive admiration and belief that they are deserving of special treatment, they don't consider the needs and feelings of others. It's almost as if to a narcissist, everyone else is just an NPC in the game of their life. The traits of a narcissist are a grandiose self-importance, often exaggerating their achievements and talents. They may have dreams of unlimited power, success, beauty, or ideal love. They require excessive admiration. They believe that they are special and unique and can only be understood by high-status people. They lack empathy. They have unreasonable expectations when it comes to favorable treatment or compliance with their wishes. They exploit and take advantage of others. They envy others or believe others are envious of them, and they have an attitude of arrogance. Apparently, the best way to identify a narcissist is just to ask them. Now, on first blush, this may be counterintuitive because, of course, they would deny it, or they would challenge their identity. But researchers have found that a person who admits to being a narcissist will likely score higher on the narcissism scale. Now, there may be some benefits to having subclinical levels of narcissism. These people may perform well in high-pressure situations. Their heightened level of self-worth can make them much more motivated and assertive than another person. However, they may value getting ahead over getting along. They can be uncollaborative and argumentative. They may also be laser-focused on becoming the winner in whatever situation they're in. They will take credit for the success of others and lash out at those who don't capitulate to their wishes. In their quest for control and admiration, a narcissist may manipulate and exploit others. They may destroy the self-esteem of those close to them. They may also be prone to gaslighting those around them. And it is usually useless to argue with a narcissist. And the best way to deal with narcissism is actually just to establish boundaries or to emotionally distance yourself from them. At times, especially when it's really bad, it may be necessary to cut ties with a narcissist, whether that's a partner, a family member, or even a boss. If you have a narcissist in your life, it's important to not lose your own sense of self when the narcissist continually tries to take center stage. There are apparently two types of narcissists. A vulnerable narcissist whose outer shell of self-centeredness and self-absorption masks a weak inner core. And a grandiose narcissist, who's one who truly believes in their own greatness. A person who is a grandiose narcissist may also have other dark triad traits like Machiavellianism they're manipulative, and psychopathy, the lack of remorse and empathy. A narcissistic Machiavellian can get especially irritating. They are particularly antagonistic and always seem to get their way. They are the one-uppers, maybe even the Karens in the world. They try to show their superiority while steamrolling everyone else. It is possible for a simple narcissist to be happy. However, it's less likely that a narcissistic Machiavellian or a narcissistic psychopath to be very happy. A narcissist's desire to be admired and receive praise can make them appear especially charming and charismatic. This is something that can get a romance going, for instance. But with their lack of empathy, it can be difficult for them to establish a fulfilling long-term relationship. It is difficult for narcissists to develop a trusting equal partnership. They may seek to establish strict rules in a relationship, even attempting to isolate a partner from friends and family. They may also attempt to pit one loved one against another. And they may also have a belief that the rules don't apply to them. If the narcissist cheats, you're just expected to forgive and forget. And there's a lack of healthy communication. and it's impossible to ever meet their growing needs. They may even do something like question your own fidelity if you just have a simple conversation with another person. And they may blame you for their failings. They may be quick to identify your weaknesses. And they are competitive and jealous. Now, this is really starting to sound a lot like that poem. So, how else do you tell if a person is a narcissist? Or are they just being selfish or a jerk? The key seems to be with how consistent this behavior is. If a person is occasionally mean or self-centered, they just might be acting like a jerk or having a bad day. However, if they are consistently like this and lack empathy, you are likely dealing with a narcissist. So, the Narcissist prayer is a piece of literary art that does seem to give a good summary of narcissistic behavior. The prayer can show how a narcissist manipulates the truth. For a narcissist, the truth is not fixed, but something that is flexible and replaceable. It can be difficult, if not impossible, to reason with a narcissist due to their self-serving and illogical perception of reality. So, let's break down the narcissist's prayer. That didn't happen. Now, this is a form of denial. If something makes a narcissist look bad, they will disown it. Similar things that they might say in a hurtful situation is, "You're just imagining things. You're just twisting the truth. You're remembering that all wrong. You're confusing me with someone else." A narcissist needs to feel flawless. They want people to consider them special because they work so hard to hide their true identity. They would rather deny than admit their wrongdoing. And if it did happen, it wasn't that bad. This is a way to invalidate your experience. They may also say something like, "Is it really that important?" And because they lack empathy for anyone but themselves, your concerns will look insignificant to them. They'll invalidate anything from your success to your failure, their own bad behavior, or really anything else. They will tell you to just get over it, or you need to stop feeling sorry for yourself. And if it was, it's not a big deal. A narcissist will gaslight you, meaning that they will manipulate you so severely that you start questioning your own reality. They might say something like, "You're just overreacting," or "You're being childish," or maybe even, "You're just being difficult." If you're constantly told things like this, you really do start to question your own perception. You may even start to question your own judgment. And if it is, that's not my fault. This is something called blame shifting. They need to find a scapegoat instead of admitting that they are wrong about something. They like to play the victim. If they can't be the hero, the narcissist will blame someone else for making them do whatever that they are upset about. They may even blame you. They might say something like, I don't know, "You made me do it. And if it was, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry, not sorry." It may be impossible to receive a true apology from a narcissist. They will never account for the bad things that they did or the people that they hurt. Maybe saying something along the lines of, "Geez, I was just joking," or "I'm sorry you feel that way. And if I did do it, you deserved it." Again, blame shifting. In the rare case where a narcissist admits to something wrong, they will have an argument ready that will ultimately blame you for whatever happened. They'll tell you that you deserve what they did. They might say something along the lines of, "If only you had," fill in the blank, or "You brought this on yourself." They will know your weaknesses and how to push your buttons. Wow. Now that all sounds exhausting and so unhealthy. If you know someone who fits into these descriptions, you might have a relationship with a narcissist, and it might be time to evaluate the cost of the relationship on you. Now, as I was reading up on narcissism, I wanted to include more of its description, just in case you may be in some sort of relationship with a narcissist, besides the church. Sometimes having the words to put something in is enough for a person to evaluate their situation. And because this channel mostly focuses on the Mormon Church, how does this relate to the church? Besides these descriptions really seeming to fit descriptions of Joseph Smith's behavior, there seems to be a lot of behavior by the corporate church that starts to fit into the description of narcissistic behavior, especially in regards to defending, quote, the good name of the church, or even in terms of apologetics. Now let's look at a few topics and see if they fit into the narcissist prayer format. Now these won't be exhaustive descriptions, but just to illustrate the point. Now let's start with a classic, Joseph Smith's polygamy. Now for the longest time, the church denied that he practiced polygamy. It used to be considered anti-Mormon lies, or that it all started under Brigham Young. So that fits into the "that didn't happen" portion of the narcissist prayer. Then the internet happened, and the evidence became undeniable. The narrative changed to something along the lines of polygamy was practiced to take care of the widows. So many Mormon men were killed due to persecution that someone had to take care of all those women. So they entered into polygamous marriages. And they didn't even have sex with them. Or in other words, if it did happen, it really wasn't that bad. Now I remember sharing this little factoid on my mission, as I heard it from so many other missionaries. Then, as journal entries of some of the women involved became more well known, it came to light that some of Joseph's wives were, in fact, children. The defense of, well, it was normal at the time for 14-year-olds to get married. Or even the oft-quoted adage of, these men were imperfect. So you see, it wasn't a big deal. And it wasn't the church's fault. And then, into the Utah era, the defense was added that these women had strong testimonies of polygamy and defended it. So they were asking for it. They deserved it. A similar thought process can be used when talking about racism in LDS scriptures or concerning the priesthood and temple ban on black people until 1978. For instance, a TBM might claim that there's, of course, no racism in LDS scripture. And if it seems like there is, then it's because the word skin doesn't actually mean skin. But for the longest time, it was taught that cursed people, aka people who aren't white, brought it on themselves. They were less valiant in the premortal life. Then it morphs into general authority saying that God has always limited access to the priesthood to certain groups of people, and that God's ways are higher than our ways. Then, finally it turns into, we just don't understand. We will find out after we die. Now, what about Joseph Smith's translation of the Book of Mormon using seer stones? Again, if we use the narcissist prayer as a model for how the apologetics have evolved over time, it'll say, he never used seer stones. It was the Urim and Thummim. And then, he wasn't a treasure digger using a stone and a hat to find lost treasure. He wasn't deceiving people to get gain. Then it morphs into, well, he was using this time as a treasure digger to hone his prophetic abilities. He eventually left behind treasure digging and used his abilities to translate the Book of Mormon. God used what Joseph knew in order to give him the revelations he needed. You see how that all kind of flows together? What if we look at the Book of Abraham? Apologists will claim that the scrolls are authentic and translated correctly. But if they aren't, the facsimiles aren't from the original papyrus. And if they are, there must have been other scrolls, so we don't actually have the ones that Joseph translated. And if we do, Joseph used them as a catalyst, thinking God was giving him the translation of the scrolls themselves. So it really isn't that big of a deal that the scrolls really don't have anything to do with Abraham. You see what's happening with these? Now let's look at a couple more. When we look at the treatment of gay people in the church doesn't discriminate against gay people, they'll say. And if it does, it's because being gay is a choice. So they are choosing to live in sin, making it all their fault. They deserve it. But if it's not a choice, they still can't get married because God has defined marriage to be between a man and a woman. Now they can be gay, but they can't act on it. They just have to be celibate for the rest of their lives. It isn't that bad because sometimes straight people don't find someone to marry either, and the standards are the same. You could probably go on and on with so many other topics. Like, for instance, the church's hoarding of billions of dollars and keeping it a secret because the leadership feels that people will stop paying their tithing. They may try to claim that the church doesn't have all that money. And if they do, it really isn't a big deal because they need to build temples and care for the poor. And they are glad that the church has been so wise with the money that it has received from the members, and that the church will need it for the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, how about the church's handling of sex abuse and the subsequent cover-ups that have tragically been happening all over the U.S.? Or the church's culpability in contributing to the rise of such yahoos as Jody Hildebrand or Tim Ballard. Ultimately, the church will be quick to distance itself from any of these situations. They'll employ apologetics to come up with some clever workaround, or they will just blame the members, claiming that we never taught that. Or in the words of President Gordon Hinckley, quote, "I don't know that we teach it. I don't know that we emphasize it," unquote. The church will lie and then blame the members for things that it clearly taught for decades. If the church wishes to move on from something, they will simply stop talking about it for several years. Then the older people start to die off, and everyone else just kind of moves on to other things. And the younger generation will grow up never hearing about this de-emphasized topic. Then, when it inevitably gets brought up, they'll just say that the church doesn't teach that, or that those are anti-Mormon lies, or something along those lines. The church will let the topic go down the memory hole without ever denouncing it, and then blame the members if they come across it later. Like a classic narcissist. But what are your thoughts? What other church topics follow the pattern of the narcissist's prayer? Do you feel that the church is a narcissistic organization? Let me know down in the comments. And again, if you like what I do, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.